Hey everybody, my name is Jay.
And I'm Tracy, and together we lead the South Orange County Church.
We want to welcome you today to our Connect video series. And in this video series, we talk about Jesus and how awesome he is. And something that he did or said, or something that his followers did or said. And then we get together and we discuss it. And we try to make some connections and make a connection with God about who he is, or make connections with each other. And we believe by doing that, by discussing it, by making those connections, it can really help us to kind of find some peace in this life that can feel so crazy.
One of the best things you can do is start your week with God and his people.
Yep.
So all over South Orange County this weekend, we have small groups meeting to talk about the very things we're going to talk about today.
Right.
We would love for you to join one of those groups. So watch all the way to the end to find out how you can connect with one of them.
That's right. So let's go ahead and jump in, grab your Bible and a journal, and we'll get started. Okay, so we're really glad that you joined us today. And for the last several months here over the summer, we have been spending time talking about what's gone on in the early church. And we were actually able to go into the whole time period between the resurrection and Pentecost. And then we've been talking about what happened in the first part of the early church. And it's been really cool to be able to discuss all that. And there's so many lessons that you can learn from that. So that's what we've been doing all summer long, which has been great. Today we're going to get into a story about Saul, which is really cool. And we've got several more weeks on that. But as we get into September, around the middle of September, we're going to switch and we're going to start a new series here in our Connect series, or our Connect videos, where we're going to be talking really about what discipleship to Jesus looks like. And we're going to talk about being with him and what it means to actually spend time with Jesus. And we're going to talk about becoming like him and how we can change who we are to become more like he was. And then we're going to talk about doing the things that he did, and just really what it means to be an apprentice or a follower or a student of Jesus. And so that's what we're going to be doing in September. At the same time, we're also in our church going to be starting a focus on building healthy marriages, which is going to be great whether you're married or single. It's going to be able to help a lot of people that you know. And so we're going to be going through a great book called Making Marriage Simple, and allowing that to strengthen the marriages here in our church, but also for our friends. And so I want you to start inviting your friends to come to that, praying for people that you can invite to come and be a part of that. On September 11th, that's going to be kind of our kickoff for that. We're going to have a special event called Marriage Hacks. And we're just going to, that's a super fun event. Where we come together and just kind of laugh a lot and talk a lot and just talk about some really basic things that will help you in your marriage. And so we're looking forward to that. But so September is when we're going to be kicking a lot of that stuff off, around the middle of September. So we're going to be making some of those changes, which will be really great. But I have to say, I'm really proud of all of our small groups. Those of you that are meeting together every Sunday.
We made it all summer,
and,
almost.
We've done it all through the summer, which has been really cool. And so I just wanted to say thank you for trying it. Thank you for being willing to experiment. And I know that doing new things sometimes can be difficult, and then also feeling the pull to go back to something that was normal or feels a little bit more familiar. That can be there as well. But I want to say thank you for trying it, and I also want to urge you to not give up. And to not slow down. Here's our thought right now is that for the fall, we want to do everything we can to invite as many people as possible to join us in what we're doing. It's a great time to be able to meet your kids' friends at school and your kids' friends' parents at school if you've got kids in school, and just meet other people and be able to connect with people. We want you to invite as many people as possible to come to join your small gathering on Sunday. And if what you're doing right now and how you're doing it, if you don't feel like, hey, a lot of people would want to come to this, then change what you're doing and do it differently.
Do it different.
Have a barbecue every Sunday. Have a pool party.
Join with another group.
Join up with another group. Maybe combine a couple groups and have a lot of people together, and just do something where you can invite your friends to come and be a part of your spiritual family.
Yeah.
And there are people that are looking for that. There's so many churches around here. Not everybody is looking to go to another church. Some people are, and we will get back to that. We will get back to having services in the building. But for right now, what we're doing is I want you to find the people who maybe wouldn't want to do that, but would want to come into your backyard and have a barbecue and maybe sit around and have a little bit of a spiritual discussion. So for the next couple months, I'm just asking you to pour your whole heart and soul into this. and let's see what God does in bringing people to us so that we can help them find Him.
Amen.
We can help them find Him. That's what I meant to say. So anyhow, that's what we're looking forward to for the next few months. And then as we get towards the end of November, we're going to start having Advent services. We're going to celebrate Advent together. And really talk about the coming of Jesus and what that means. And so as we go into the holiday season, that will be a great way to set ourselves up spiritually. So we're going to have some great services in the building during that time. And then who knows when we get to January what we're going to do. We have some ideas about some things. So, but whatever we do, our focus is how do we glorify God and help as many people as possible know who He is. And so that's what I want to ask you as the South Orange County Church to help us to do. If you're not a part of the South Orange County Church and you're just kind of joining us, that's what we're talking about, and that's who we're trying to be. We're trying to actually live this Christian life, not just pretend that we live it or not just talk about it, but actually live it out and then help other people to do it. So this is a great group of people. It's a great church, and I'm just really excited about all that God has in store for us. So
Agreed.
With that, let's talk about Dr. Seuss a little bit. You ever read a Dr. Seuss book? You ever read a Dr. Seuss book?
Many Dr. Seuss books.
So, there's one of the things that I was thinking about the way that Dr. Seuss illustrates the buildings. Like the building in the Lorax. Or some of those other buildings. They're like really tall but impossibly made, and it's really like how is that building going to hold together? The staircases are going in different directions, and is that even really possible? And I heard this podcast where somebody was talking about that visual image, and that sometimes the story of God, like the beautiful story that is held within the scriptures, is like that because it's a mystery. And it doesn't always make sense, and then sometimes it produces questions, but it's really cool to look at, and it's amazing at the same time. And so then what we'll do sometimes in order to understand that mystery is we will build a scaffolding around it. And scaffolding is a very rigid structure, very safe structure where you can climb up on it and get a different perspective on that building, or maybe you can get to the door to be able to get into that building, and it allows you to safely approach this mystery and look at it that way. And then sometimes someone will come after that, who then they come up and they see a scaffolding around something, and then they have to climb up on that scaffolding to be able to get in to see what it is on the inside. And then some people will say, well, I like this scaffolding better, and then some people will build a different scaffolding on the other side of the building, and then they want to be on that one. Then there'll be arguments about which scaffolding is the best. And our spiritual life can be that way, that God is providing us with this incredible idea, this incredible concept of living in His kingdom, this kingdom that He has created, this kingdom that is within us, that is this great way of living and relating to one another. And through the scriptures, there's so much mystery, and there's so many things that we don't quite understand, but as we look into it, it's beautiful and awesome. But then people will build a scaffolding around that. And a lot of our religious systems and denominations and ways that we approach theology, even the systematic theology, as we get into it, it creates this very rigid way of looking at things. And we can feel like that we're really right about the way that we're looking at the story of the scriptures. But then sometimes God will come along and change that, or He'll tear down our scaffolding, and He will cause us to look at it in a different way. And many of us have, you might be feeling like you've gone through that over the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe just a couple years, that God has changed the way that you look at the scriptures. And I think this is actually a really good thing because it helps us to grow, and it helps us to look at things in a different way. Because you can get really set on believing that the way that you think and the way that you believe is absolutely the right way with no questions asked. And sometimes maybe that's not the best thing. This is the position that Saul found himself in. So Saul was a religious guy. He was a Jew. He was a Pharisee. He was kind of being groomed to hopefully get into the whole high priesthood. He was amazing. He was faultless in the way that he kept the law according to the Pharisaical tradition. He knew everything about how it should be, and he was absolutely zealous. And so when this whole thing came along about this guy Jesus, Paul was like, no, there's no way. That is not how the Messiah is gonna come. I don't think this is not right, because this offends everything about the way that I have been viewing God. And so then when this guy Stephen stands up and they're all arguing with Stephen, actually a lot of people think that Saul was in the synagogue of the freedmen, that was having those conversations with Stephen. And so then when they were all there stoning him, Saul was that's kind of one of the reasons Saul was there, and he was holding everybody's coats while they're stoning him. Like he was appalled. He was so offended by Stephen and what Stephen did. And then after that, he went on this tirade, this mission to do everything that he could to tear down the way of Jesus and to tear down this new sect and to help people realize that what they were thinking was absolutely ridiculous about Jesus. And so, I mean, he thought for sure that he knew what righteousness to God was going to look like. And then God came along and changed that. And let's actually look at this in Acts chapter 9, verse 1. It says, meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and he asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. So he's going to Damascus, and Damascus was like this cultural and commerce center where, a lot of roads came together, and then it all went out from there to like Arabia and Persia and all these other things. And so the city of Damascus was like, man, we cannot let this Christianity take root there. And we have to stop it there, absolutely. And so he was very focused on this mission. I've got to get to Damascus. It's not like Jerusalem maybe was the center. He was like, I got to get to Damascus to stop this. So he's very focused on what he's doing. And he's going to Damascus. Then verse 3, as he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Can you imagine what this would feel like for Saul? That he has been chasing down all these people who claimed to follow this guy Jesus, who they claimed was brought back from the dead after they had finally gotten him crucified, that they gotten the Romans to kill him. And then all of a sudden, he's blinded on the road, sees this blind light, and then it's Jesus. It's Jesus that is actually talking to him and saying, it's me, Jesus, whom you have been persecuting. And so the abrupt realization that, you know what? I was wrong. I was not thinking this through properly. Clearly, I was wrong. Now, he thought he was right, and he could tell you every possible reason why he was right, and he was absolutely confident in his rightness. And then Jesus came along and said, actually, I want you to change, and I want you to be different. There's something else that I want you to know. And this happens to all of us, actually, along the way. Now, it has happened to many of us when we had our initial conversion, right? When we first got baptized, when we first came into contact with Jesus. But I believe that it also happens kind of continually as we grow. After you're a Christian for a number of years, you're going to go through a reconversion. As you become older and wiser, you're going to see that, oh man, I've put some scaffolding up, or even around my Christianity, that actually maybe I want to change that a little bit. Maybe God is showing me something different. And God says, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, because I want you to change. And now I'm going to call you to something else. I'm going to give you the opportunity to grow into something else. I'm going to take who you were. I'm going to take all of your talent and all of your ability and all of your passion and all of the things that you think are so important. And now I'm going to give you this opportunity to change and become different than that. And God, he does that with us. He calls us into something different. And that's what he was doing with Saul. He was like, I'm going to take everything that you have, all of this focus, and now I'm going to give you a different mission with it. I'm going to shift your thinking a little bit. I'm going to help you to see things a little bit different. And now I'm going to call you to something else. And God is calling you to that too. God is calling you to something different. He's calling you to step up into something else, something he's got planned for you that is really awesome. You know, later in Acts, Paul was recounting this story. He actually does it a couple times, but he was telling the story in Acts chapter 22. He was retelling it. And when he gets to the point then when he goes into Damascus and God has reached out to this guy named Ananias and said, hey, Ananias, I want you to go and heal this guy named Saul because he's blind. Ananias is like, God, are you sure?
The same one that's been killing everyone?
Yeah.
Or taking everyone to prison?
I don't know that we want to.
Sure?
You want me to go talk to him? Actually talk to him? And God's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I got this. So, no, what a whole study in and of itself. But so Ananias goes to the house where Saul is staying, and he goes in and he says, hey, Jesus told me to come and heal you and tell you a few things. And so it's really cool. When you hear Saul recount the story, it's cool to hear what he remembers about that. So in chapter 22, verse 14, it says, and then he said, speaking about Ananias, then he said, the God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now, what are you waiting for? Get up, be baptized, and wash your sins away, calling on his name. I just love that. What are you waiting for? Mm-hmm. What are you waiting for? You need to get up and be baptized. You need to get about this business that God has set you aside for a specific purpose. God has designed something for you to do. Mm-hmm. He's called you to something. And now what are you waiting for? And it's time to go ahead and get going with that. And that, I think, is the message for us today, is that God is calling us to something, and it is time for us to stop waiting around and to go ahead and get up and get busy.
Yeah. You know, this story reminds me of something that I've been mulling over in my brain lately. Is that a word, mulling?
Sure.
Yes,
mulling.
Okay. And that is that we often use the metaphor of the butterfly to describe the Christian life. You know, right. I was a caterpillar and then I got baptized and now I'm a beautiful butterfly.
Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah.
But really the Christian life is way more like a lizard.
Right.
Which, you know, no one really wants to be a lizard.
Oh.
Because it's gross. But they shed their skin, you know, every once in a while. I don't know how often, but they shed their skin. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's way more what the Christian life is like, is that you go into this new area of your life. And this thing that happened to Paul, happens again and again and again, you know, where you have a call from God. God is calling you to something new in your life,
right.
Not just your baptism, but something new who knows, every season of your life. You know, it could be that God is calling you right now to study the Bible.
Right.
It could be that he is calling you to get baptized. Maybe you've been studying the Bible for a while and you're just waiting to be, perfect or something before you get baptized.
Right.
He's saying, no, what are you waiting for? You know, go ahead and get baptized.
Maybe
he is calling you to have a conversation with someone at work who you know you need to have a conversation with, or maybe he's calling you to reach out to your family, or maybe he's calling you to be active in the school where your kids go so you can meet more people and reach out to people at your kids' school, or
right.
just get to know your neighbors, or calling you to be humble in your marriage or to apologize for something. There could be a new phase of life that you're going into where God is calling you to grow, to shed old skin and become something new.
Right.
You know, God is always, this happens repeatedly in our lives.
Right. So when you think about that, you know, and maybe something came up for you even while Tracy was going through, you know, all the list. There's something that God is presenting to you. There's something that he's calling to you. And sometimes we don't listen to the callings. The calling will be going on. It's a nudge in our minds and in our spirits, and we don't want to do that. And so we won't listen to it. But you know, and this is where I want us to really listen to what Ananias said to Paul here, which is, what are you waiting for? And sometimes we have to really examine, like, okay, if I feel like God is calling me to something, and yet I have some resistance and I'm not wanting to move into it, what is it that I'm waiting for? You know, sometimes we'll go, well, I'm waiting for things to slow down. Like I have to wait until everything slows down. It's a little bit too crazy right now. Like this week is super crazy, but I'm sure next week will be better, right? You know, I just gotta, as you're coming into the school year, you're like, the end of the school year is crazy. I just gotta wait until the summer. and then everything will calm down. But then you get into the summer and everybody's going everywhere, and you're like, well, I got to wait until school starts again. And so, you can have a lot of these things. Like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for things to slow down? Are you waiting for everything to become perfect? Are you waiting for just the right time before you decide to be humble? Are you waiting for just the right time before you decide to apologize? Are you waiting for just the right time before you actually reach out to somebody? Are you waiting for your life to be easier? A lot of times, we'll think, okay, it's just too hard right now. I just can't. And meanwhile, we've got all of these beautiful ideas and scriptures in the Bible where Jesus is like, I will be your strength. Come to me and I will give you rest. I will help you do this. You can go on my strength. I will help you. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? So we know that it is possible just because life is hard doesn't mean that we can't live out the calling that God is giving us. Maybe you're waiting for someone else to apologize to you before you can actually engage your Christian life. We talked about this a lot in our church earlier back in the spring. We were talking about just the things that can hold us back, the grief that holds us back, and the way that we view leadership and the church and all these things. Are you waiting for the church to become perfect before you will actually engage it again? Maybe you're waiting for church to look normal again, because since COVID, nothing has looked normal, and now we're doing all these small groups, and I just don't understand it. I think, I can't talk to anybody about Jesus if we're meeting in a small group. So maybe you're waiting for that, or you're waiting for some kind of healing to come, like you feel discouraged. You feel a lot of pain, you feel a lot of grief about something, and you're waiting for all of the healing to come before you will listen to God's calling on your life. So here's what I want you to discuss in your groups today. That we were talking about that idea of the scaffolding and how we can look at this life that God is calling us to from a certain viewpoint or a certain perspective. And then God changes that. But even through God changing that, sometimes he is allowing us to see it from a different way so that we can actually see what our true calling is. That's what Saul went through. He looked at life one way, and then Jesus called him to something else. And then it was like, so now what are you waiting for? Don't worry about what happened before. Don't get caught up in the fact that maybe you were wrong or things were wrong or people were wrong. What are you waiting for? Get up and move forward. And that's what I want you to talk about today is like, what do you feel like the calling is? What is God calling you to? What is he wanting you to do? Who is he wanting you to help? How is he wanting you to change? So that's the first question. What is God calling you to? And then the second question is, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Or maybe why are you waiting? And be able to acknowledge that and talk about what holds us back from doing what God has called us to do. We believe that God really does want to use our church, the South Orange County Church, to help people in South Orange County. We believe that God has a great message that he can share through us to other people. And I want to ask all of you in every group, every small group that is watching this, I want to ask you to listen for that calling that God has given us to help people and to share the gospel. By the way that we live, by the way that we communicate, by the way that we share our life with other people. And then to stop waiting and to step into it and do it. So I pray that you will take some inspiration and courage from this story about Saul today, that you will listen to the calling that God has given you, and that you will step forward into that. So hopefully this is going to be a great discussion for you today. So like we said, there's a lot of groups of sitting around, people in their park, in their backyard or in a park somewhere talking about this. If you'd like to join one of our groups, we would love to have you do that. If you want to come join us at our church, we have midweek services on Tuesday. We would love to have you join one of those. We will study the Bible with you. We've got this great marriage stuff coming up this fall. We've got a lot of other activities going on. We want you to be a part of our church. So if you need to get in touch with us, you're more than welcome to. We'll answer any questions. You can email us at socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com. That's socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com. And we will get back to you right away and help you with whatever questions you have. And other than that, we hope you have a great time with your groups this week, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday.